Amina sat by the window of her Nairobi apartment, the morning sunlight spilling across the polished wooden floor. She cradled a warm cup of tea in her hands, scrolling through emails on her laptop, the kind of quiet, ordinary morning that made life feel steady and safe. Her husband, Tay, was still asleep, and for a moment, everything seemed perfect. He was charming, successful, and loving, or at least that's what she had always believed. The city outside hummed gently, a familiar backdrop to her routine, and Amina allowed herself a small, contented sigh. Then she opened their latest bank statement. At first, she thought it must be a mistake. A few numbers didn't match, a couple of withdrawals she didn't remember authorizing. Her eyes went back and forth across the screen, trying to make sense of the figures. But as she scanned further, the irregularities grew clearer. Transfers to unknown accounts, sums disappearing without explanation. A slow, sinking feeling settled in her chest. Her pulse quickened, her hands trembled slightly, and a knot of unease tightened in her stomach. Something wasn't right. For a moment, Amina tried to push the thought away, telling herself it could be an error or a bank glitch. But deep down, she knew the truth would be far more unsettling. The calm morning, the soft tea, the sunlight, the gentle quiet of her apartment, now felt fragile, hanging by a thread. Whatever was coming, she realized, would shatter this peaceful world she had taken for granted. The storm wasn't just on the horizon, it was already beginning. Amina sank into the sofa, her mind replaying years of small, nagging doubts about Tay. At the time, she had always found easy explanations for his behavior. The secretive phone calls she occasionally overheard, his hushed whispers in another room. She told herself it was just work stress. The late-night hours he spent on the computer, often shutting the screen the moment she entered the room, seemed innocent at first. Even the weekends he disappeared without much explanation felt normal. She assumed he was meeting clients, attending business dinners, or handling urgent projects. She had trusted him completely, believing in the love they shared and the life they were building together. But now, with the bank statement glaring at her from the laptop screen, those little moments began to take on a new shape. Each memory twisted slightly, revealing cracks she had ignored. She remembered the way he would sometimes hide his phone under a pillow when she entered the bedroom, or how he would smile nervously when she asked about his late-night meetings. She thought those were quirks of a hard-working husband, but now they looked like pieces of a puzzle she hadn't wanted to see. Amina's mind sifted through the timeline of their life together. There were birthdays he claimed to be too busy to attend, small financial decisions he made without consulting her, and whispers of surprise investments she never heard about until now. Each memory was a thread, and as she pulled on them, a pattern of deception began to emerge. It was subtle, almost invisible at the time, but now it felt undeniable. The realization made her stomach churn. How had she missed these signs for so long? How had she trusted so blindly? Her quiet home, the life she thought was secure, suddenly felt fragile, built on secrets she hadn't imagined existed. The small things she brushed off now screamed betrayal, and every detail she remembered made the shock of discovery even more intense. As she sat there, staring at the ceiling, Amina understood that this wasn't just about money. It was about trust, honesty, and the life she had believed in. Each small lie, each evasive answer, each hidden moment now formed the foundation of a larger truth. Tay had been hiding more than she ever suspected, and as the weight of that truth settled over her, she realized that the calm she had once felt was gone, replaced by a rising storm she could no longer ignore. Amina sat at the kitchen table, her laptop open and her fingers trembling as she logged into a secondary bank portal she had never needed to use before. Her heart pounded in her chest, a mixture of fear and determination pushing her forward. She had to know the truth. One click after another, she navigated through menus, her eyes scanning for anything unusual. Then she saw it, a hidden account in Tay's name, one he had never mentioned. The balance alone made her gasp. It was far more than she could have imagined, a fortune that had been completely secret from. For a moment, Amina simply stared at the screen, her mind refusing to process what she was seeing. Betrayal cut through her like a cold wind. How could the man she trusted so completely hide something like that? Anger rose inside her, mingling with confusion and disbelief. She scrolled through the transactions, each entry like a fresh stab. Large sums sent to people she didn't know, investments she had never been told about, payments that made no sense at all. Every number felt like proof of deception, a confirmation that the life she thought she knew was a carefully constructed illusion. As she dug deeper, she noticed patterns, repeated transfers on certain dates, withdrawals timed around vacations she thought he was spending on work, payments to companies she had never heard of. It wasn't just money being moved. It was a story of secrecy and manipulation unfolding right before her eyes. She felt her stomach twist, a mix of fear and outrage making it hard to breathe. The realization hit her fully. This was intentional. Tay had kept her in the dark, building a hidden life while she believed they were partners in everything. Amina's hands shook as she took screenshots, documented transactions, and tried to make sense of it all. She felt both powerless and enraged, the emotions crashing over her in waves. Each click, each discovery strengthened her resolve. She wasn't going to let this slide, not quietly, not without confronting him. The weight of the betrayal was suffocating, but it also lit a fire inside her, a need for clarity, accountability, and justice. Sitting there in her quiet apartment, surrounded by evidence of Tay's secrets, Amina realized that nothing would ever be the same. The calm mornings, the trust, the sense of security, they had all been illusions. And now, with the truth finally revealed, she knew the next steps mattered. The storm she had sensed was no longer approaching. It was here, raging, and she had to face it head-on. Amina sat on the edge of her bed, the morning light falling softly across her face, but she hardly noticed it. Her mind was a storm, swirling with emotions that seemed impossible to sort. Betrayal hit first, sharp and cutting, leaving her feeling exposed and raw. She had trusted Tay completely, believed in their partnership, and yet here was proof that he had been hiding entire accounts and secret transactions from her. Anger followed quickly, hot and relentless, burning through every thought. How could he do this? How could he betray her so completely after everything she had done for him? Sadness crept in next, slower, heavier. Amina thought of the sacrifices she had made over the years. She had put her career on hold to support Tay's ventures, spent nights working double shifts, and weekends catching up on tasks she had set aside for him. She remembered the personal dreams she had tucked away, the opportunities she had passed up, all because she believed in their shared future. And all the while, he had been living a hidden life, making secret decisions with money she didn't even know existed. The contrast was almost unbearable. Her life had been one of transparency and commitment. His had been a labyrinth of secrecy and deceit. Her thoughts drifted to quiet nights in the apartment, to conversations that now seemed empty, to gestures of love that now felt hollow. Every memory that once brought comfort now carried a sting of doubt. Amina wondered if she had been blind, naive, or just too trusting. Fear rose alongside the anger and sadness. Fear of what this meant for her future, for her independence, for the life she had believed they were building together. She realized she could no longer take anything at face value. Not a word, not a promise, not a smile. But beneath the anger, sadness, and fear, a small spark of resolve began to grow. Amina knew she had to make sense of this, to find a way forward without letting the betrayal define her. She couldn't change the past, but she could control how she responded. The emotional turmoil was overwhelming, but it was also sharpening her focus. Every memory of sacrifice, every pang of betrayal, became fuel, preparing her for the actions she would need to take. Amina closed her eyes, letting the whirlwind of feelings settle just enough for clarity to seep in. She understood that the path ahead would be difficult, that confronting Tay and reclaiming her life would take courage and careful planning. But she also understood something more profound. She was stronger than she had realized. The storm inside her had not broken her. It was awakening a determination she hadn't known she possessed. And with that quiet but powerful realization, Amina began to prepare herself, not just to respond, but to rise. Amina sat at her kitchen table late into the night, a notebook open in front of her, filled with carefully written notes and screenshots of the hidden bank account. Her hands no longer shook the way they had when she first discovered the secret, but her mind was sharper than ever. She wasn't going to let this betrayal go unanswered. Not this time. She needed a plan, something that would expose the truth completely and leave no room for denial. The first step was documentation. Every transaction, every transfer, every suspicious payment had to be recorded. She organized spreadsheets, cross-referenced dates, and highlighted sums that didn't add up. Amina knew that if she was going to confront Tay, she needed evidence that was irrefutable. She couldn't rely on anger or accusations alone. The proof had to speak louder than her emotions. With each detail she recorded, her confidence grew. The fog of shock that had clouded her mind was slowly lifting, replaced by focus and determination. Next, she turned to research. Legal blogs, financial forums, and advice columns became her companions in the quiet nights. She read stories of people who had faced similar betrayals, noting the strategies that worked and the mistakes to avoid. She learned about legal procedures in Nairobi, about how to secure evidence, and how to protect herself financially. Every piece of knowledge became a tool, another way to turn her outrage into action. Amina also reached out discreetly to a trusted financial advisor in Kigali, someone who could verify her findings without raising suspicion. They exchanged messages cautiously, making sure no one else could trace their communications. The advisor confirmed her suspicions, explained potential next steps, and gave her practical guidance on confronting Tay in a way that would leave him no room to manipulate the situation. But Amina didn't just want a private confrontation. She knew that if Tay tried to gaslight her or twist the story, it could turn into another layer of deception. She began thinking about timing, setting, and witnesses. The confrontation had to be public enough that Tay couldn't spin it, yet controlled enough that she could remain calm and composed. Every detail mattered: who would be present, what would be said, how evidence would be presented. As she planned, Amina felt a mix of anticipation and empowerment. She wasn't just reacting, she was in control. Every step she took was deliberate, every decision a way to reclaim her life and her dignity. The fear and shock of discovery were fading, replaced by strategy and focus. The storm that had erupted in her life was no longer just chaos. It was a challenge she was ready to face head-on. By the end of that long night, Amina had a clear path forward. She would confront Tay, but on her terms. Evidence in hand, allies at her side, and a carefully thought-out plan. She was ready to turn betrayal into accountability. The calm, strategic preparation gave her a sense of power she hadn't felt in years, and she knew that when the time came, the revelation would be undeniable and unforgettable. Amina knew she couldn't face this alone. The discovery of Tay's hidden account, the betrayal, and the emotional chaos it caused were too heavy to carry by herself. She reached out first to her best friend, Zuri, someone she had trusted for years. Sitting across from her at a quiet cafe, Amina explained everything in hushed tones, careful not to draw attention. Zuri listened without judgment, her eyes wide with shock, but also steady and supportive. She offered practical advice, ideas for documenting evidence, and most importantly, a shoulder to lean on. Just having someone who believed her, someone who understood her pain, made Amina feel less isolated. Next, Amina turned to her older brother, Kwame. Strong, protective, and level-headed, he had always been a guiding presence in her life. When she shared the situation with him, his first instinct wasn't anger, it was strategy. Kwame helped her think through the steps carefully, asked probing questions she hadn't considered, and encouraged her to act thoughtfully rather than impulsively. Together, they discussed how to handle the confrontation, how to gather evidence, and how to protect herself emotionally and financially. His calm perspective grounded her, providing balance to the swirling mix of fear, anger, and heartbreak she had been feeling. Amina also took steps to verify the financial details she had uncovered. She reached out discreetly to a local banker, someone who could confirm whether the hidden account was legitimate without tipping off Tay. The banker quietly checked the records, confirmed her suspicions, and offered advice on how to proceed safely. This small but crucial confirmation gave Amina the certainty she needed. She wasn't imagining things, and she now had professional validation to back up her claims. With Zuri, Kwame, and the banker supporting her, Amina began to feel a shift. She realized that facing betrayal didn't mean facing it alone. Her support network gave her strength, confidence, and clarity. They reminded her that she wasn't powerless, that her feelings were valid, and that taking action was not only possible but necessary. Each conversation, each piece of advice, made her more prepared and more determined. This network of allies wasn't just practical, it was emotional armor. It allowed her to process her emotions while also staying focused on the steps ahead. Amina felt the weight of the betrayal less heavily because she wasn't carrying it alone. The support of those she trusted most created a sense of anticipation, a quiet excitement mixed with determination. She was preparing to face Tay, and now she knew she had the guidance, expertise, and emotional backing to do it on her terms. The storm was still coming, but she would not face it by herself. The evening was warm and lively in Lagos, the scent of spiced food filling the dining room as friends and family gathered for what they thought was a simple family dinner. Amina sat quietly at the table, her hands resting on the polished wood, calm and composed on the outside, but every muscle in her body alert and ready. She had planned this moment carefully, every detail accounted for, every piece of evidence ready. Tonight, Tay would no longer hide behind excuses or charm. As the main course was cleared, Amina spoke, her voice steady but firm. "Tay, I need to show everyone something," she said, sliding her laptop and neatly organized documents toward him. Heads turned, curiosity flickering in every eye. Tay laughed nervously at first, trying to brush it off as a joke, but the look in Amina's eyes told him this was serious. She opened the first spreadsheet, highlighting withdrawals and transfers he had never mentioned. The numbers were clear, precise, and damning. Tay's smile faltered as she went through each transaction, every hidden account, every payment to unknown recipients. He attempted to explain, to gaslight, saying it was for business or you misunderstand, but Amina remained unshaken. She spoke with quiet authority, letting the evidence speak for itself, her words measured but sharp. The room grew tense. Family members exchanged glances, some shocked, some angry, all riveted by the unfolding truth. Amina continued, showing how she had tracked the funds, verified the accounts, and documented every suspicious move. There was no room for denial, no loophole for manipulation. Tay's excuses grew weaker, his tone defensive, but she maintained control. Her calmness in the face of his agitation only amplified the impact of the revelation. Friends who had never suspected anything now understood the depth of the betrayal, and even those sympathetic to Tay could not ignore the facts laid bare before. As she closed the laptop and gathered her papers, Amina looked directly at Tay. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by whispered reactions from the guests. She had anticipated every possible response, and her preparation had ensured she remained the dominant presence. The confrontation was complete. The hidden account was exposed, the betrayal laid bare, and Amina's authority unmistakable. For everyone present, the moment was unforgettable. It was more than a personal revelation. It was a dramatic display of courage, strategy, and composure. Amina had turned a private betrayal into a public reckoning, unmasking deception in a way that left no doubt about who held the power in them. The shock, the awe, and the undeniable truth created an instant ripple of emotion, making the confrontation one for the memory books. Viral in its intensity, human in its raw emotion, and completely undeniable. The room buzzed long after the confrontation ended, voices low and urgent as friends and family processed what had just unfolded. Some whispered in disbelief, shaking their heads at the depth of Tay's betrayal. Others stared at Amina with a mix of awe and admiration, impressed by the way she had handled herself, calm, collected, and completely in control. The hidden account, the secret transfers, the carefully documented evidence. It was all there, undeniable, and it had shattered the image of Tay that everyone had believed in for years. Tay, for the first time, seemed small, defensive, almost invisible. His usual charm and confidence had evaporated in the face of cold, clear facts. Family members who had once sided with him looked away, unsure how to respond. Some relatives quietly expressed shock and anger at his deceit, while a few tried to rationalize it, claiming he must have had good reasons. But even their words sounded hollow against the weight of evidence. The credibility he had built over years, with charm and persuasion, crumbled in front of everyone. Neighbors and close friends who had been part of their social circle began discussing the event in hushed tone. Gossip spread quickly, but unlike ordinary rumors, this was anchored in truth and backed by proof. Amina's decisive handling of the situation became the center of every conversation. People marveled at her composure, the way she had turned what could have been a private humiliation into a public assertion of accountability. Her ability to control the narrative, without losing her dignity, earned her admiration and respect. Meanwhile, Amina herself felt a strange mix of relief and empowerment. The storm of betrayal was not entirely over, but she had taken command of the situation. By exposing the truth publicly, she had reclaimed control over her life and forced Tay to face the consequence. The reactions around her, shock, whispers, awe, were proof that standing up to deception could change not just a private relationship, but the perception of everyone involved. The fallout rippled further than she had imagined. Messages poured in from friends, colleagues, and even distant family members, expressing support, pride, and encouragement. People connected to her story on a deeply human level, recognizing the courage it took to confront betrayal so directly. Social media began buzzing quietly, as friends shared the story of her calm but decisive action, turning a deeply personal ordeal into a broader conversation about honesty, trust, and empowerment. Through the reactions, stunned faces, whispered gossip, admiring glances, Amina saw the power of truth and preparation. She realized that standing up for oneself in the face of deception not only restores personal dignity, but also resonates with others, inspiring admiration, empathy, and even a sense of justice in those who witness it. The event became more than just a confrontation. It became a statement, a moment that left a lasting mark on everyone who experienced it. After the confrontation in Lagos, Amina knew the next steps had to be careful and strategic. Public exposure had sent a strong message, but it didn't automatically secure her financial safety. She needed legal backing, clear documentation, and a plan to protect herself from any further manipulation. Back in Nairobi, she contacted a team of trusted attorneys, carefully chosen for their expertise in family and financial law. From the first meeting, she made it clear. She wanted transparency, fairness, and control over her own future. The lawyers helped Amina organize every piece of evidence she had gathered. Bank statements, screenshots, transaction histories, and detailed notes were all compiled into a professional dossier. This allowed her to clearly demonstrate not only the hidden accounts, but also the pattern of secrecy and financial misconduct. Every detail mattered, and the process required patience. Meetings, phone calls, and document submissions became part of her routine. But with each step, Amina felt more empowered. She wasn't just reacting anymore, she was taking action with authority. Legal proceedings gave her the tools to secure her rights. Joint assets were reviewed, and arrangements were made to protect her from further financial loss. The attorneys guided her through negotiations to reclaim money that had been secretly moved or invested without her knowledge. She also explored options for future independence, including establishing her own accounts, investments, and legal protections. Slowly but surely, she regained control over the financial life that had been undermined by Tay's deception. The process wasn't easy. It required focus, persistence, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. But Amina approached it with the same clarity and composure she had shown during the confrontation. The emotional weight of betrayal remained, but the legal steps gave her tangible power to change her situation. Each successful filing, each verified account, and each agreement reached was a victory, a reminder that she was no longer a passive victim, but a decisive actor in her own life. Through this journey, Amina transformed. The shock, anger, and sadness she had felt after discovering Tay's secret accounts evolved into confidence and self-respect. She learned the importance of preparation, the value of a strong support network, and the necessity of standing firm in pursuit of justice. By securing her financial independence and reclaiming transparency, she not only protected her present, but also built a foundation for her future. Amina's story showed that betrayal, no matter how deep, does not have to define someone's life. With careful planning, legal action, and personal determination, it is possible to reclaim control and emerge stronger. The resolution of her case offered closure, not just in financial terms, but in emotional and psychological ways. She had turned a painful discovery into an opportunity for empowerment, proving that action, justice, and self-respect could transform even the darkest moments into a path forward. Amina sat by the balcony of her Nairobi apartment, the city lights twinkling below, and reflected on everything that had happened. The journey had been painful, full of betrayal and shock, but it had also been a journey of growth. She understood now more than ever that trust must be earned, not given blindly, and that secrecy in a marriage can destroy even the strongest bond. Most importantly, she realized that self-worth is non-negotiable. No one has the right to manipulate, deceive, or control her life. Sharing her story with close friends became a way to process her experience and inspire others. She spoke openly about the hidden accounts, the betrayal, and the steps she had taken to reclaim her life. Friends listened, some with tears, some with disbelief, but all with admiration for her courage. Her story resonated because it was real, raw, and relatable. Amina's experience became a lesson not just for herself, but for those around her. Standing up to deception and demanding accountability is not only possible, it is necessary. Beyond personal reflection, Amina began investing in her own ventures, building businesses that reflected her vision and ambitions. Each project was a symbol of her regained autonomy, a way to create a future defined by her choices rather than someone else's secrets. She found joy in planning, taking risks, and seeing her efforts grow, proving to herself that she could thrive independently. Looking back, Amina saw the transformation clearly. From a shocked and betrayed spouse, she had become a confident, empowered woman in control of her life. The journey had tested her resilience, but it had also revealed her strength. Her story was more than personal. It was a message to anyone facing betrayal or injustice. Reclaim your power, stand firm, and let your courage define the next chapter. In that moment, Amina felt not just relief, but triumph, ready to embrace the future she had earned.